He came in undercover to see how customers were treated. What he heard behind him confirmed his worst fear. He parked his old Ford Ranger just outside the showroom, engine ticking in protest as he turned the key. It was a dusty blue pickup, paint chipped on the sides, driver's seat stitched with duct tape. No one gave him a second glance when he stepped out. Which was exactly what he wanted. Plain jeans, a canvas jacket, and work boots caked in dried-up red dirt. He blended in without trying. To the outside world, he looked like a guy who just got off a job site. Maybe welding, maybe roofing. Nobody imagined that less than 12 hours ago, he'd been in a conference room signing payroll checks for this very place. The dealership sat just outside Amarillo, Texas. Not too big, not too flashy. A Chevrolet GMC joint on the edge of a busy road. He had bought it 5 years ago, rebranded the entire place, rebuilt the service center, hired young, paid well. But lately, there had been whispers. Ones he couldn't ignore. His assistant, Melinda, had brought him 3 separate complaints in the last 2 months. All quiet, all from Black or Latino customers. And all had something in common. They felt talked down to, or simply ignored. He wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding, a one-time slip-up. But something deep inside told him otherwise. So here he was, walking through his own dealership, no one realizing the man who paid their salaries had just walked through the front door. "Need help with something?" a voice called out, dry and flat. He turned to see a salesman, mid-30s, thinning hair, clipboard tucked under his arm, staring at him without smiling. "Yeah," the CEO said, voice casual. "Looking to buy a truck?" The man shrugged. "New or used?" "Used." Another shrug. "They're all over there." He pointed toward a row of dust-covered trucks parked under the midday sun. No walkthrough, no handshake, no welcome. The CEO nodded, more to himself than to the salesman, and headed toward the trucks. A young woman and her husband, white, early 30s, both in golf shirts, were stepping out of a black SUV. A second salesman, younger, with gelled-up hair and flashy teeth, was already jogging toward them. "Welcome in, y'all," the younger man said cheerfully. "Can I get y'all coffee or water while we take a look? AC's working just fine inside too, by the way." The CEO caught all of it. He stopped at a silver Sierra 1500. Clean. Recent model. Minor dent on the passenger door. Price tag said $24,300. He bent to check the tires. Behind him, the first salesman appeared again, hands in pockets. "That one's got some miles on it, but she runs all right," he muttered. "How many miles?" "Little over 110. Maintenance record?" "Think we've got it on file. You want me to ask someone?" The CEO stood up slowly, taking a second to look around. The couple inside were already laughing with the second salesman. They hadn't even looked at a single truck yet. He turned back to the man in front of him. "Yeah, I'd like to see the maintenance record, and maybe take it for a test drive." The salesman sighed like it was a hassle. "Sure, I'll get the keys." As the man walked off, the CEO pulled out his phone and opened his notes app. A quick line. "Silver Sierra 1500. Salesman didn't know mileage or records. 0 engagement." This wasn't about being difficult. This was about truth. He glanced at the reflection in the truck's window. A man in his late 40s. Faint grey in his beard. Calloused hands from years before the boardrooms. But his eyes, they were sharp. He remembered too well what it felt like being sized up by someone who thought you had nothing to offer. That memory never really fades. The wind picked up a bit, carrying with it the sound of a distant laugh from the showroom. But what came next would cut deeper than he expected. The salesman came back 5 minutes later, dangling the keys from one finger, a wrinkled printout in his other hand. "Here's your record, and the keys," he said, with all the warmth of a DMV clerk on his 3rd shift. "Just bring it back in 20. The CEO took the paper, glanced at the half-filled maintenance log. Oil changes, 1 tire rotation, and a battery replacement. Sparse. The dates didn't even match the odometer reading. He folded the sheet and slipped it into his back pocket. Thanks. Mind if I ask a few questions before I drive it? The salesman looked at him like he'd asked for a foot rub. Like what? Accident history? Number of owners? You mentioned it runs all right. That mean it's got issues? The man blew out a breath, shifted on his heels. It's been an offender bender. Nothing major. As for owners, maybe 2, 3. Don't quote me. And no, nothing wrong with it. I said it runs, didn't I? The CEO gave a tight smile. You did. Just figured I'd double check since I'd be the one buying it. Another shrug. The man didn't even try to hide his impatience. But before he walked off, the CEO added, If I had a polo shirt and a lease in my hand, you think you'd be talking to me differently? The question hung there for a second. The salesman blinked, unsure whether it was a joke or something else. But instead of answering, he turned and walked away. The CEO didn't call after him. He just stood there, keys in hand, watching the guy vanish into the building. The lot was quiet now. Heat shimmered off the pavement. A truck horn blared from the road beyond the fence, but inside the dealership walls, it was all too clear what was going on. He got into the Sierra and started the engine. The seat squeaked. The AC wheezed before blowing warm air. He adjusted the rearview mirror and pulled out slowly, driving around the block. It gave him time to think. He didn't want to believe this was what the dealership had become. But everything he'd seen so far confirmed what the complaints hinted at. Bias wasn't in the system. It was the system. He circled back, pulled into the same spot, and stepped out. Inside, the showroom was all bright light and tile floors. The couple from earlier were now seated comfortably, sipping bottled water, while the young salesman pointed at a digital screen. No one looked at him as he entered. Not the receptionist, not the manager glancing down at his laptop. He could have been a ghost. He walked straight to the front desk. Hey, I just test drove the Silver Sierra. I'd like to move forward on it, he said. The receptionist, a thin woman with a tight ponytail, looked up. Which one? 2016 Sierra. Silver, 110,000 miles. She typed something, looked back at him. Let me find someone for you. He waited. No smile. No thank you for coming in. Just a stare and a tap of the keyboard. After another minute, the same disinterested salesman reappeared, clipboard in hand. You ready to talk numbers? Let's. They walked over to a cluttered desk in the corner. The chair squeaked under the CEO's weight. The salesman tapped at his screen with 2 fingers, slow and irritated. You got financing or paying cash? Cash. That got a quick glance. Really? Yeah. Problem? No, just most folks don't. The CEO leaned back slightly. I'm not most folks. They went back and forth over the price. The salesman tried to push for add-ons, warranty plans, undercoat protection, pointless stuff. The CEO declined all of it, voice steady but polite. He'd done this dance before, many times. Across the showroom, he spotted something that made his stomach turn. A tall black man, probably early 20s, in a faded hoodie and jeans, stood awkwardly near the door. He was holding a folder, clearly waiting for help. No one approached. No one said a word. The CEO watched as the young man took a few hesitant steps forward, then turned back around and walked out. No contact, no pitch, nothing. The CEO's jaw clenched slightly, but he kept quiet. Back at the desk, the salesman pushed the paper forward. Sign here if everything looks good. The pen was halfway to the paper when a voice behind him rang out, sharp and frustrated. Why is he getting helped while I've been waiting here 10 minutes? But that voice would change everything. Andre didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He stood there, calm, steady, unshakable, while the truth settled over the room like thick dust. And in that moment, no one could hide behind polite smiles or company slogans. He turned to the white man who had started it all. You want to talk about fairness? Ask yourself how fair it is to judge a man based on nothing but his boots and jacket. The man muttered something under his breath, but Andre didn't flinch. He wasn't doing this for him. He was doing it for the kid who walked out without being seen. For the single moms who came in hoping for help, but got talked over. For everyone who never got a fair shot in places just like this. The salesman, still holding the business card, looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "I've been patient," Andre said. "I believed in building a business that took care of its customers. Not just some of them, all of them. And I believed that if I hired good people, paid them right, gave them room to grow, they'd treat others with respect." He took a step closer. "But what I saw today, that's not just poor service. That's failure." The finance manager had appeared now, standing a few steps behind the receptionist. The younger salesman, the one who'd rolled out the red carpet for the couple earlier, peeked around the corner and quietly backed out. Andre didn't look away. "You think I didn't notice that the couple in the SUV got greeted the second they stepped out? Full smile, full pitch, waters in hand. And yet, I got a grunt and a finger pointed toward the lot." He shook his head, not in anger, but in disappointment. "I've worked too hard to let this place turn into a gatekeeping machine," the salesman stammered. "Mr. Talbot, I didn't mean to—" "That's the problem," Andre cut in. "You don't mean to, but you still do." There was a silence in the room now. Not the awkward kind. The kind that comes when everyone knows what was just said can't be ignored anymore. Andre turned toward the finance manager. "How long have you been working here?" The man straightened. 3 years, sir." "And how many times have you seen something like this happen?" The manager looked down, hesitant. "That's what I thought." Andre turned back to the desk, picked up the pen again, not to sign the paperwork, but to cross out his name. One strong line, straight through the contract. "I won't be buying anything today," he said, loud enough for the room. The salesman's jaw dropped. "But it's a solid truck. We're already halfway through the paperwork." "You didn't sell me that truck," Andre said. "I was already sold when I came in. You just gave me a reason not to close." A pause. Then he added, "And after today, you're done." The salesman blinked. What? "You're fired. Effective immediately." The manager took a cautious step forward. "Should I call HR?" "No need," Andre replied. "I'll handle it personally." The man stood there, stunned. Andre didn't ask him to leave. He didn't need to. The silence from every corner of the room was louder than any goodbye. He turned back toward the other employees watching from behind desks and corners. "If you think your job is to move vehicles, you're in the wrong business. Your job is to serve people, all people. The truck is the product. Trust is the sale." He let that sink in. Then, softer now, almost like he was speaking to himself, he added, "I built this place so folks wouldn't have to feel like they were proving something just to be taken seriously. And if I have to tear it down to fix that, I will." But just when it seemed like the message had landed, something unexpected would push him even further. Andre turned to leave. He wasn't storming out. He walked with the quiet certainty of a man who knew who he was. But before he could take more than a few steps, the customer in the khakis, the one who had complained earlier, opened his mouth again. "You think you're teaching some lesson? That's great and all, but you can't fire a guy just because your feelings got hurt." Andre stopped. He didn't turn around right away. He closed his eyes for a second, jaw set, holding back the wave building in his chest. When he turned back, his face was unreadable, but his voice was low and steady. "I didn't fire him because my feelings got hurt," Andre said. "I fired him because he doesn't know how to treat people with basic respect. There's a difference." The man scoffed, arms folded. "You're overreacting. So he didn't roll out a red carpet for you. Big deal. That's not racism, that's just... Maybe he was having a bad day." Andre stepped forward, closing the distance between them by half. "You know what's wild?" he said, voice calm, but louder now. "I want to believe that. I wish it was just a bad day. I wish it was a one-off, but it's not. I've got complaint emails from customers who look like me, telling me the exact same things I lived through today. And now, I've seen it for myself." He pointed around the showroom. I watched a young man walk out without anyone saying a word to him. I watched this team ignore someone standing at the door. Not once, not twice, but consistently. That's not one bad day. That's a culture. A hush had fallen again. The few customers still in the building had stopped browsing. Eyes darted toward Andre, some with curiosity, others with guilt. The man shrugged. Whatever. Seems like you're just pulling the race card to feel important. The sentence hit like a slap in the face. Andre took a slow step forward. His voice didn't rise, but it carried more weight than anything he'd said before. You don't know what it's like to walk into a room and feel the temperature change because of how you look. You don't know what it's like to be asked what you do for a living before anyone shakes your hand. You don't know what it's like to have someone explain a contract to you like you can't read. He shook his head. And maybe you never will. But don't you dare stand here and pretend it doesn't happen. Not when you just watched it. The man didn't respond. Andre looked around the room again. He wasn't speaking to just one person anymore. He was speaking to all of them. I didn't grow up with much. My mom cleaned motels. My dad laid concrete until his back gave out. They didn't have connections, no backup plan, just pride. They taught me to work hard and never make excuses. And I didn't make excuses when people called me names, or locked their car doors when I walked by, or watched me shop like I was going to steal something. He paused. His voice cracked slightly. Not with weakness, but with truth. I made it anyway. I built something. And I made damn sure to treat people better than how I was treated. That's why this matters. Because what we do here, how we greet people, how we answer their questions, how we make them feel, it says everything about who we are. He let the silence return. No one interrupted. Then slowly the man who had caused the scene turned and left. No apology, no words. Just walked out. Andre looked at the employees one last time. This place needs to change, starting today. But just as he thought the moment had passed, someone spoke up, and it wasn't who he expected. From the far end of the showroom, a quiet voice broke through the silence. Mr. Talbot. It came from a young woman near the service counter. Mid-20s, soft-spoken, hair pulled into a tight bun. Andre turned to her slowly. He recognized her. Barely. She worked part-time in the back office, mostly behind the scenes with paperwork and invoices. Her name escaped him for a second. Danica, she said gently, almost as if she could read his mind. He nodded. Danica, right. She stepped forward, voice steady now. I've been here almost a year. I've seen things I wanted to say something about, but I figured no one would care. Andre didn't say anything. He let her keep going. I've seen how certain customers get passed off, how the tone changes depending on who walks in. And when I tried to bring it up to a manager once, quietly, I got told to mind my pay grade. So I did. I stopped talking. Andre's face didn't move, but something in his eyes softened. Danica looked around the room. She wasn't just speaking to him now. I thought it would change eventually, that someone higher up would notice. But maybe we all thought someone else was going to say something. Andre took a slow breath, then walked toward her. I appreciate you saying it now, he said. She nodded. It needed to be said. He turned back to the rest of the room. Everyone looked different now. Some were ashamed, some were unsure. A few avoided eye contact altogether. I didn't come here to embarrass anyone, Andre said. But I had to know for myself. I had to see what's been hiding behind politeness and excuses. He looked back at the receptionist, who was now staring down at her desk. You knew something was off too, didn't you? She didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, yeah, why didn't you say anything? I didn't want to lose my job. Andre nodded slowly. I get that. But silence lets this stuff grow. The longer we stay quiet, the worse it gets. And then one day we look around and realize the place we work in doesn't look anything like the place we believed we were building. He paused. Accountability isn't just about pointing fingers. It's about fixing what's broken. Together. The room stayed still, like they were waiting for the next shoe to drop. Andre stepped back toward the desk where the paperwork still sat. The half-filled contract, the crossed-out signature, the pen. He picked up the business card he'd dropped earlier and held it up. This card doesn't mean I know everything. It just means I've got a little power. But what good is that if I can't use it to make things better? He looked over at the fired salesman's desk. Empty now. I'm not just making one example. I'm changing how we do things here, starting today. He looked toward Danica. You want to help me with that? She blinked. Me? Yes. You've seen what needs fixing. That makes you valuable. I want someone on the inside who isn't afraid to speak up when something feels wrong. Can you do that? Her voice trembled just slightly. Yes, I can. Andre smiled, the first real smile of the day. Good. Let's get started. He turned to the rest of the staff. There will be a meeting tomorrow morning. Mandatory. We're rewriting some things. Not just on paper. In how we show up. For everyone. He let his words hang for a beat, then walked toward the front doors. The sun outside was blinding, but he welcomed it. As he stepped back into the heat, his phone buzzed. A text from Melinda. Everything okay? He typed back. Not yet. But it will be. But there was still one more thing left to do. Something that would close the loop on what he came here for. Andre didn't get into the old Ford Ranger right away. Instead, he walked past it, toward the sidewalk, toward the street, scanning left and right. He was looking for someone. And just when he started to think it might be too late, he saw him. The young man from earlier. He was standing under the shade of a bus stop across the road, headphones in, folder still tucked under his arm. Same faded hoodie, same quiet posture. He was staring off down the street, waiting for something that wasn't coming anytime soon. Andre crossed quickly. Hey, he called out. The young man looked over, cautious. Andre slowed as he approached, raising one hand like a peace offering. Don't mean to startle you, I saw you earlier, in the showroom. The kid pulled out one earbud. Yeah? You were waiting to be helped. But nobody did. The young man nodded once. Wasn't the first time. Andre tilted his head. You come here often? I've been looking for a truck. Something used, nothing fancy. Been to 5 places in the last 2 weeks. Same story every time. Andre sighed. What's your name? Ezekiel. Ezekiel. Andre repeated. I'm Andre. I own that dealership over there. Ezekiel's eyebrows lifted. You're serious? Dead serious. Ezekiel chuckled once, not bitter, just surprised. Man, I thought you were just another guy getting the same treatment. Andre gave a small smile. I was. He stepped closer, lowering his voice a little. I came dressed like this on purpose, to see how my team was treating people when they didn't know who they were dealing with. What I saw today? I'm not okay with it. Ezekiel studied him. So, what now? Andre reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. You still need a truck. Ezekiel nodded slowly. Come back in with me. Not as a customer this time. As my guest. I want you to sit down with Danica. She's someone I trust. And we'll find you something reliable that fits your budget. You'll get the respect you should have gotten the moment you walked in. Ezekiel didn't answer right away. He looked at the building behind them, then back at Andre. His voice was low. You don't have to do that. I know, Andre said. But I want to. There was a long pause. Then Ezekiel gave a nod, a real one, the kind that says, all right. I'm in. They crossed the street together, side by side. And as they stepped through the glass doors again, something felt different. People noticed. Employees stood straighter. A few looked ashamed, but no one turned away. Danica was already at the front, ready. She nodded once at Andre, then greeted Ezekiel with a kindness that felt like it had been missing for too long. Andre didn't hover. He stood back, arms folded, just watching. This was why he started this business in the first place. Not just to sell vehicles, but to build something better, something honest, something fair. And somewhere along the way, the culture had drifted. But it wasn't too late to fix it. When Ezekiel was seated and Danica began pulling up options, Andre finally stepped outside again, this time for real. He got in his old Ranger, started the engine, and sat still for a moment. There was no speech playing in his head. No swelling music, just the hum of the engine and the warm wind drifting through the open window. He'd made a decision that day, not just about a truck, or a staff member, or a business, but about the kind of legacy he wanted to leave behind. Not just as a CEO, as a man who showed up even when it would have been easier to stay silent, a man who remembered what it felt like to be overlooked, a man who didn't just talk about change, but made damn sure it started in his own house. He shifted the truck into drive and pulled away, slow and steady, fading into the sun. Some people earn their title with a degree. Others earn it with time. But the ones who deserve it, they're the ones who never forget where they came from and use every inch of their power to pull others up. If this story meant something to you, share it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that speak truth, no matter how hard it is to hear.